Greetings and salutations, viewers. Welcome to another episode of Game Break. I am Charles, coming to you today with another episode of Without Within 2. In episode 1, we revisited Vinty, our aspiring calligrapher who has a grant to go to Melbourne, Australia and meet a famous calligrapher, Excellia. On our way there, we actually got to meet and talk to Excellia herself in first class on the plane to Melbourne. We wrapped things up by taking a nap. So now, hopefully, we will arrive in Melbourne and go from there. Let's dive right in. I thought I had only taken a quick snooze, but when I opened my eyes, the glaring sunlight made me squint. Turned out I was one of the select few who could sleep on a plane. If I had known, I would have set my phone alarm so I could see the sunrise. Drifting through the clouds fascinated me at first, but by now they amuse me no more than the night sky. At least riding a bus meant having traffic to look at. There's a video. I want to see the video. What does video? Oh dear. Video does something weird. So clicking on the video trips you over to YouTube to see the said video. We are not going to post that in this video, however. I feel like that would not be fair. But good to know, do not click the video button while recording because it'll port you to another window. Moving on! But then, I glanced down and spotted the landscape situated miles below, so we must be nearing our destination. We first passed a maze of treetops, and as we advanced, more and more buildings started to emerge. The traffic below also picked up in number. Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. A flight attendant's voice sounded through the speakers. Oh, that's a female. My bad. She spoke in a formal tone as if recording an audiobook. We are now arriving in Melbourne Airport, the lady continued. Please return to your seats and fasten your belts as we prepare for landing. The couple beside me had already had their seatbelts on. Jeez, they could have nudged me awake. If I had stayed asleep, I doubted they would have even bothered strapping me in. I quickly clipped on my seatbelt, worried our plane might land in the next second. The lady next to me yawned, showing no interest in watching this plane land. Her loss, as I gazed out the window. I could hardly make out the buses below, let alone the people. Perhaps that was how Excellia saw the rest of us no-name calligraphers. The plane swayed back and forth as it descended toward the airport ahead. Any time now, I thought, but 5 minutes passed and we still had yet to land. My ears started to throb as if someone was gushing water into them. I had read online that chewing gum while landing could help with this type of discomfort. Yes, I always did my research before embarking on an adventure. Too bad I had left my chewing gum back in the apartment, making it all kind of pointless. Cabin crew, please prepare for landing, came the announcement, but either the speakers sounded muffled or my right ear needed to get checked. At least it still worked better than my left ear, which could no longer pick up a single sound. I hoped both ears would be fine again once I landed. At last, the plane descended into Melbourne Terminal. I waited for the wheels, which I assumed were lowered at this point to make contact with the runway. As those wheels met the pavement underneath, I swallowed my gasp and managed to save myself the embarrassment of freaking out. The plane did weigh, gosh, I had no idea how much, but I should have expected the landing would be pretty rough. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Melbourne Airport. I beamed upon hearing that announcement. Well, only my right ear heard a muffled version of it, but all good. The staff spoke on through the speakers. The local time is 10:20 a.m. For your safety, please wait for the seatbelt signs to turn off before making your exit. That couple beside me had already unclipped their belts. The second our plane stopped, they rose to retrieve their luggages from the cabinet overhead. Perhaps they might be getting mine as well. The couple clicked their cabinet closed with my backpack left inside. They used their suitcases like bowling balls and knocked people aside as they headed for the exit. Never should have expected anything from people like that. I wished I could have spent this whole flight with Excellia instead. When I untied the seatbelt and stood to grab my backpack, a staff ran over to help. That kid nearby giggled at me again. If karma existed, he should grow up to become a shorty. I murmured thank you to the staff as they handed me my backpack. As I strapped on my bag, the other passengers lined up across the aisle to exit this plane. Not one of them offered me space to squeeze in, and in the end I waited for every last person to pass before stepping out. A pair of flight attendants stood by the door. As I passed them, they bowed and wished me a nice day. The ear popping and landing may be rough, but riding a plane still makes me feel like royalty. I offered the staff a wave as if I were the queen on a parade. Rather than checking the signs, I trailed the other passengers, since they too must be leaving the airport. Excellia would have stood out with her robes and sparkles, but she was nowhere in sight. The staff must have let her exit first, being a frequent flyer and all. Still, knowing Excellia never waited for me made my shoulders slump a little. With so many business meetings to attend, she might have forgotten about our dinner already. Oh, that reminded me. I took out my phone and hit send to deliver that email over to Excellia. Since I only had a backpack on, the security guard let me through much faster than those with suitcases. Sucked to be one of those rich people with a million things to carry. With that, I stepped outside the airport and greeted the sight of Melbourne for the first time. Was it weird to grin just because the taxis here were yellow instead of red? For those well-traveled, probably. As for me, I wanted to snap photos of every single thing that looked different. The road before me consisted of almost nothing but taxis. I guessed in just about any country, taxis loitered in airports like mosquitoes buzzing around a bed. The pigeon count here sure was high. Some perched on those trees planted along the road, while others scavenged the footpath for scraps. A limousine drove into the scene, its white bonnet glistening under the morning sunlight. As a crowd gathered around the vehicle, I joined in to see what was up as well. After flashing its indicators, the limo steered into the taxi lane, taking up 2 car spaces with its long frame. The taxi behind it gave one long honk, followed by a series of short beeps. Oh, the limousine and taxi drivers climbed out of their vehicles and stomped up to one another. I gulped as if I was the one getting into a fight. The limo driver dug a hand into his suit pocket and pulled out a stack of $100 notes. With a flick of the wrist, he slapped these notes right across the cab driver's face. Oh my. As if the man's pride could be sold so easily. Come on, taxi man, time to fight back and make us common folk proud. Thank you, my good sir. Have a pleasant day, the taxi driver said. With a bow, he took the money and crawled back into his car. Rich scums 1, everybody else 0. Yep. The light rays peered through the automatic doors next to me. Shielding my brows with one hand, I spun and saw Excellia walking out with a guard on each side. She exited the plane first, so I thought she was long gone. Maybe she went to the loo or something. I guess celebrities needed to relieve themselves too. Excellia's sparkles explained why the place had suddenly turned so bright. Her shoes crossed each other as she pranced along like a model. The 2 guards shoved each other as they fought over the right to open the limousine door for Excellia. They had the same face, too, so I thought they would respect one another, but nope. While they wrestled, a third guard popped out from the limo's rear door. With a smile, he clicked the front passenger door open. Excellia blew him a kiss as she entered, causing him to pass out. The limousine driver came out to close the door for Excellia before returning into his car. I guess shutting a door was too bothersome for our goddess here. Excellia pulled up her tinted window and the limousine drove off, leaving one guard out cold and two others stranded in the parking lot still elbowing one another. I recalled having a dream one time about riding in a limousine. In reality, I would need a Kickstarter just to buy a new bicycle, with perhaps a spare wheel as the stretch goes. Not to worry though, as I said, I had already purchased a ticket for an express bus that would take me straight into the city. Speaking of which, I spotted an express bus pulling up to the curb on my right. Only a dozen or so people were waiting in line, so there should be enough space for me to get on. At the front of the queue stood a staff in an orange vest. That scanner in his right hand must be used for checking tickets. I unzipped my backpack and pulled out a piece of paper with my ticket barcode on it. The page might be crumpled up, but that should be no trouble for the scanner. As I walked up to the staff, I smirked at the unprepared folk rushing to buy tickets from a booth to the side. Have fun missing this bus, suckers. The staff hovered his scanner over my ticket. Several beeps came out of the scanner, no doubt to indicate I was good to go. This ticket has expired, the staff said. Why would you do that? The staff pointed at the date printed on my ticket. You bought this 4 months ago, but our tickets are valid for up to 3 months. He shook his head. I'm sorry, but you have to buy a new pass from that booth over there. Ouch. With my head hanging low, I shuffled over to join those people I had called suckers just seconds ago. Yeah, one more sucker coming right up. After buying a new ticket, which, by the way, meant no more breakfast money, I ran for the bus only to have its doors close in my face. I doubt Excellia ever had to suffer a similar ordeal. Oh, and Mr. Ticket Guy, I saw you laughing, so no need to hide it. Good thing these buses showed up every 10 minutes or so. I hopped on to the next one and off I went toward Melbourne's Central Business District, the CBD, as people called it. I can speak, I swear! As the bus drove along a bridge, I snapped more photos of the yellow taxis that sped by. I also clicked my phone at some of the road signs passing overhead. The traffic lights here let out different beeps from the ones back home. Also, the red crossing man blinked instead of a green one. These simple differences were enough to make me smile. In just under 30 minutes, the bus steered into a parking lot. I had read online that these express buses terminated at Southern Cross Station, so this must be the place. Indeed. As the bus came to a stop, the driver said something like, "Welcome to Southern Cross Station." His voice sounded muffled as my ears were still ringing from the flight earlier. The front door folded open, and with only a backpack to carry, I managed to worm my way out before anyone else. This dimly lit parking lot smelled a little too dusty for my taste. I can imagine some horror movies being filmed in here. Sunlight peeked in through a pair of automatic doors ahead. That must be the way out, then. Either that, or Excellia just happened to be standing outside, lighting up the place as she always did. After adjusting my backpack straps, I left this bus terminal behind and stepped out onto the city streets. A pair of trams drove past me from either side. That left one was a box-shaped model that looked quite ancient. The tram to my right, by comparison, looked like it came from the future. Those green and yellow carriages appeared spotless, as if they had arrived fresh off the factory. Printed along the middle carriage were the words, "Your next generation tram." I had seen videos of these trams online, but seeing them in real life brought me a whole new level of excitement. Hopefully, I would have a chance to ride one before this trip ended. That bus driver had said something about us arriving at Southern Cross Station. I spun around, and indeed, there was the station sign displayed under the blue sky. The station's roof took on a wavy pattern, reminding me of ocean waves, or those graphs I never quite figured out back in math class. If I walked to the other side of the road, I should be able to get a better view of the station. I skipped up to a crossing and pressed the button on the lamppost. As I waited for the light to turn green, I noticed a dozen blue bicycles lined up by the curb before me. The word Melbourne was printed in white along each of their frames. It was a machine of some sort sitting next to each bike, too. I guess these were rentable bicycles? Yet another foreign concept that fascinated me. The green walking man appeared, and I checked both sides while I crossed the road, just in case trams follow different rules or something. I had no idea how those trams and cars managed to navigate around one another on the same road. Then again, this might be why I never got myself a driver's license. After reaching the footpath opposite, I pulled out my phone to snap a photo of Southern Cross Station. Time to take out my hand-drawn map I had left in my pocket. See, I came prepared. I had sketched the city's layout just in case my phone died, the internet died, or, knowing my luck, both. This map might be a bit crumpled from the flight, but for a 2-day trip, it should do the trick. I felt like a pirate hunting for treasure. Not only did I put together a map, but I had also planned out a schedule to ensure no time went wasted. I traced a finger along the route to my first destination, Hosier Lane. That's not even on that map image. For an artist like me, there was no better place to kick off this trip. Hosier Lane was an alley that showcased artwork sprayed by local street artists. Legally approved ones, just to clarify. And I'm going to have to pause right here to deal with something, so we will be right back. Apologies. And we're back. Apologies about that. Melbourne really seemed to respect the sweat and tears of artists. Maybe if I sold my calligraphies on the streets here, I would have better luck than I did back home. To celebrate Excellia's event tomorrow, I heard Hosier Lane was now featured works from local calligraphers. Hopefully stopping by for a visit might bring me some inspiration. I arrived at the alley and, well, calligraphies had indeed been painted across the brick wall before me. However, they all look smudged like makeup ruined by tears. I guess the works had to be wiped for the next set of artists, but they could have at least waited until after Excellia's show ended tomorrow. My works never received any attention, and I felt pleased that the calligraphers here suffered the same treatment. I loathed this part of me, the part that yearned to lure everyone into my abyss. Excellia, on the other hand, had soared too high for me to bring her down. With her work shown in museums across the globe, she had no need to fight for space in an alley like this. In fact, one clap of her hands and she could probably buy this entire lane. Just pocket change, as she would probably say. Successful people like to set up tents on the mountain peak, leaving no room for new climbers to fit. If I ever reached stardom, I swore I would act differently. Excellia shouted me a meal, and now here I was complaining of behind her back. Maybe I should change my name from Vinty to Envy. With nothing to really look at here, I might as well leave. A row of trees sat in between the two traffic lanes on Queen Street. Sunlight poked through the leaves, casting blocks of shadows across the pavement below. A flock of baby birds chirped as they landed from the trees and skipped along the soil. Birds never had to bear the pain that came from having a dream. It must be nice in some ways. Alright, enough of this emo talk. I checked the paper map for my next destination, the Eureka Skydeck. Calligraphers from around the world had gathered for tomorrow's show. I read on a forum that they wanted to hold a meetup at the tower this afternoon, so count me in, folks. My tummy growled, reminding me to eat first. I had planned to treat myself to a nice lunch on my first day, but I blew that money on my bus ticket from earlier. With knitted brows, I bought a single dumpling from a dim sum stand and called that my lunch. I bet it would fill me up about as well as that dog poo sausage did. As I took my dumpling out of its paper bag, one of those old-fashioned trams was heading towards a stop ahead. These CBD trams in particular were free, so I might as well get on. Unsure if eating was allowed inside, I jammed the dumpling into my mouth before jogging up to the tram stop. Rather than parking directly next to the stand, the tram stopped in the middle of the street. I thought the engine might have broken down or something. Passengers were already starting to get off, though. Did I have to cross the road to hop on? With nobody else in the queue, I had no reference at all. The train driver waved at me to get on. After glancing left and right for cars, I sprinted up to the tram and jumped in. This must be the standard way of boarding here. It made sense, considering trams had no way of detaching from its track to park by the curb. Silly me. I took a seat by the window, and as the tram resumed its course, a male voice came from the speakers. "The next stop is Spencer Street. Step off here for Southern Cross Station." I ran a finger across the dust-speckled windowsill to my right. The carriage appeared as if it was made of wood, and it gave off the scent of an ancient library, too. I approved of this retro feel. "For your safety, please take a seat or hold on, because trams sometimes have to stop suddenly in traffic," the tour guide continued to speak. The recording reminded me to try and enjoy this trip. No sense letting this calligraphy thing gnaw at me all day when Melbourne had so many different sights to offer. I pulled the paper map out of my backpack to give it another read. This CBD tram circled around the city, and the Eureka Skydeck sat just outside its route. I should get off at a nearby stop and leg it from there. After such a big lunch, I could use the walk anyway. "You can purchase a Mikey from one of hundreds of retail outlets," the announcer spoke on, but it was time for me to get off. The tram stopped once again, leaving space between its doors and the footpath. I checked both sides for cars before hopping on. The locals must be used to this, but I felt a bit like that frog in, well, Frogger. Following my map's directions, I stepped onto the bridge located ahead. This wide bridge allowed both cars and trams to drive across it. 2 lanes of trams, in fact. A lot of bicycles were swerving past me left and right. When I glanced down, I found a bicycle symbol painted underfoot, meaning I must have stumbled onto the bike lane by mistake. Feeling like a foolish tourist, I darted out of the bicycle area and back onto the footpath. A cyclist beamed at me as he rode past, even though he had every right to feel annoyed. Under the bridge sat a river that glittered under the afternoon sun. The Yarra River, according to my research. I pulled out my phone to snap a photo before strolling across the bridge. After a 10-minute walk, I arrived outside the Eureka Skydeck. The vertically aligned letters on the logo resembled a tower, which might be exactly what they were going for. A group of backpackers made their way through the automatic doors. They could well be the calligraphers from that forum I always lurked in. For some reason, seeing these forum users in real life made my brows stain with sweat. Or Maybe the walk from earlier had just tired me out. Come on, Vinty. These people shared your passion for calligraphy, so they should be seen as your allies. I wanted to tell myself that, but if so, why did I shiver as though I was treading into a minefield? Oh, to heck with it. Turning around now would just be silly. I squeezed my bag straps and stepped through the automatic doors. To my left stood a wooden wall with the tower's branding painted across it. A long slanted light hung overhead to illuminate this logo. On the far side, those backpackers from before were queuing up for the elevator. There were more people here than I had expected. I hoped only a few of them were actual calligraphers. The man and lady behind the counter grinned as I approached them. With suits that, well ironed, they could easily host their own TV shows. "Good afternoon," the man said. "Would you like to visit the tower?"
"We have day and night tickets available, as well as a combo for a discounted price," the woman chimed in. They must be well rehearsed with this introduction speech of theirs. Admiring the night scene from the tower top would be nice, but I had best head to the hotel early for a good night's sleep, so I just went with the day ticket. After I made the purchase, the male staff pointed at the dimly lit hallway. "You will see the elevator on the far end." The lady nodded. "Thank you. Please enjoy the view." These two backed each other up with more grace than most married couples I knew. After saying thanks, I made my way down the hall and into the elevator. "The sky deck is the Southern Hemisphere's highest viewing platform," a male voice echoed as the numbers on the display soared faster than I could keep up. We might blast off into space at this rate. "At 285 meters, this is the same as 20 of Melbourne's trams stacked on top of each other." The pre-recorded voice continued to list the tower's features. The upward force pressed my shoes against the floor, and that ear-popping sensation from the plane landing made a return, although it was far less severe this time around. "Did you feel a sway at all? That's normal. In fact, the Eureka Tower can sway 30 centimeters in each direction." This had to be the most powerful elevator I had ever stepped in. The one in my apartment creaked after floor 3 and broke twice a month, so no contest there. "We're nearly there. Enjoy the view and listen for the sounds of Melbourne above you. Welcome to Eureka Skydeck." The number displayed stopped at 88. A staff greeted me on the other side as soon as the doors opened. I said hi back, and I hopped off the elevator. And we're going to have to see if she meets other calligraphers next time. We are out of time, unfortunately. I do apologize. But hopefully you are enjoying this story as we continue Vinty's adventures in Melbourne, Australia. Will she find new inspiration and skills and abilities to bring her calligraphy to a newer level? Will she befriend Excellia in a better manner than from the plane, or for a more long-term friendship? Perhaps. We'll have to find out next time. Until then, go enjoy some video games, some visual novels, some creative endeavors of your own. Go be inspired by others, go inspire others, and as always, go be creative. I'll see you all next time.